It's Sunday, January 7th, 2007, just after midnight. Knoxville, Tennessee. The roads are mostly empty. Porch lights are off. Gas stations glow quietly at intersections, their pumps unused, their doors locked for the night. Channon Christian is 21 years old. She has long blonde hair. She's close with her family. She's a college student. She's spending the night doing what thousands of people her age were doing that weekend, moving from one place to another, trusting that she'll be home soon. She never makes it. Within hours, Channon will be taken to places she has never been before. Not by choice, not by accident. By morning, investigators will be trying to piece together a trail that stretches across multiple neighborhoods, multiple crime scenes, and several hours that no one should ever have had control over another human being. Later that same day, firefighters will be called to a burning vehicle in a residential area of East Knoxville. The car will still be smoking when officers arrive. Inside, they will find evidence that immediately changes the tone of the call. This is no longer a routine fire. This is something else. As the hours pass, detectives will realize this case is tied to another missing person, a young man named Christopher Newsom. And what they uncover next will force police, prosecutors, jurors, and even judges to confront facts that are difficult to say out loud, even inside a courtroom. This is not a story built on speculation. There are timestamps, phone records, addresses, and sworn testimony. There are statements taken in interrogation rooms. There are autopsy reports. There are verdicts. And there are two families who woke up that morning expecting ordinary phone calls, and instead entered a nightmare that never fully ends. Before we proceed, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it, and leave a comment. Okay, let's proceed. Before we talk about how Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom died, let me give you a little backstory on what their lives was like before that very night. Let's start with Channon. If you talk to people who knew her, the first thing that comes up isn't tragedy. It's warmth, ease, the way she made people feel comfortable without trying to. She was 21 years old, a university student in Knoxville, close with her parents in that real way, not the hallmark way. She called home, a lot. She told them what she was doing, where she was going, who she was with. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Here's what I mean. Channon was the kind of person who didn't disappear into her own life. She stayed connected. She had friends. Real ones. The kind you sit on the floor with, talking about nothing and everything at the same time. Classes, stress, relationships, what comes next. That feeling of standing at the edge of adulthood, excited and scared all at once. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive in some cartoonish way. She was just young and trusting and open. People describe her as bright, friendly, soft-spoken, but not shy. Someone who listened more than she talked. Someone who noticed when others were uncomfortable and did something about it. Moved closer. Changed the subject. Smiled. She had plans. Not rigid ones, but plans in the way most 21-year-olds do. Finish school, build a life, figure it out as she went. She didn't know her time was short. Nobody ever does. And then there's Christopher. Christopher Newsom was 23, a trim carpenter by trade, hands-on. Physical work, the kind of job where you come home tired, sore, but proud of what you built that day. He loved trucks, motorcycles, working with his hands. There's something grounding about that, you know. Creating something real, solid, something you can point to and say, I did that. He was close with his family, too. Protective, loyal, the kind of guy who showed up when someone needed help moving, fixing something, getting through a rough patch. Think about it this way. Christopher wasn't chasing chaos. He wasn't living on the edge. He was building a life brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. People describe him as kind, dependable, strong in that quiet way, not loud, not flashy, just steady. And when he cared about someone, he really cared. That's where Channon comes in. Together they were just normal. And I mean that in the best way. They were a young couple figuring things out, spending time together, talking about the future in loose, unfinished sentences, the kind that start with maybe and end with laughter. They went out to eat, drove around, hung out. Nothing dramatic, no dark clouds following them. Here's the part that always gets me. On the night they were taken, they weren't doing anything risky. They weren't somewhere dangerous. They weren't chasing trouble. They were just out together, living a regular Saturday night. And that matters. Because sometimes people look for reasons, for mistakes, for explanations that make the world feel safer. As if saying, they shouldn't have been there, can protect the rest of us. But the truth is harder. They were doing what millions of young couples do every single weekend. And that's why this story stays with people. According to reports, they were spending the night together, doing exactly what a lot of couples do on a weekend. They went out to see a movie. Nothing wild, nothing last minute. Just plans you make without a second thought. Think about it. Movie nights are filler nights, safe nights. The kind of night you don't text anyone about because it's not memorable. It's just life. After the movie, later that evening, they left the theater and got back into Channon's car. It was already dark out. Cold, January cold. The kind that makes you want to get home fast and not linger in parking lots. According to reports, they were driving through East Knoxville. This wasn't unfamiliar territory. This wasn't a road trip or a wrong turn into the unknown. It was part of the city, part of home. What was supposed to happen next is important, so I'm going to say it plainly. They were supposed to drive home. That's it. Maybe they talked about the movie. Maybe they sat in comfortable silence. Maybe they were tired. Maybe one of them was hungry and thinking about leftovers in the fridge. These are small, human details. But they matter because this night didn't start with danger written all over it. According to reports, later that evening, their car encountered trouble. And that's where the timeline shifts. Not all at once, not dramatically, just enough to change everything. This wasn't a moment where alarms were blaring. It wasn't a choice that screamed wrong. It was a normal problem, on a normal road, on a normal night. And that's the part that still sits heavy. Because nothing about January 6th, 2007 was supposed to end in headlines. Nothing about that night suggested it would become one of the most haunting cases Knoxville has ever known. But later that evening, what was meant to be a quiet drive home became something else entirely. And from here on out, every detail matters. After Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom were taken during the carjacking, police didn't know right away what had happened to them. At first, it was a missing persons investigation. Friends and family reported them missing when they didn't come home. That's an important detail. No one knew where they were or who had them. Within a day, the investigation shifted. Their vehicle was found. That led police to a group of people connected to a house on Chipman Street. From there, detectives began piecing together who had been involved and when. Not from rumors, from statements, phone records, and physical evidence tied to locations and people. Here's what I mean by multiple people were involved. This was not a single offender acting alone. Prosecutors said different individuals played different roles at different times. Some were directly involved, Others were present. Some helped after the fact. That distinction mattered in court, because each person was charged based on what the evidence showed they personally did. Channon Christian was found the next day. An autopsy confirmed she had been killed. I'm not going further than that, because we don't need to. The legal process stretched on for years. Trials began in 2009. 4 defendants were convicted. Sentences ranged from life in prison to death. Later, Tennessee's Supreme Court reviewed the cases. Some death sentences were overturned due to legal errors, not because the convictions were thrown out. Those defendants were sentenced to life without parole. Think about it this way. When people say the sentences were overturned, that sounds like the case fell apart. It didn't. The findings of guilt remained. What changed were how the punishments were applied under the law. One more thing I need to say, clearly. This case became distorted online. False claims spread. Names were dragged in without evidence. The focus drifted away from facts and toward outrage. That doesn't help anyone. It doesn't honor Channon Christian, and it doesn't explain what actually happened. So my position is simple. We tell the truth. We don't sensationalize. We don't invent. We acknowledge that Channon Christian was a real person who was taken during a crime, held, and killed. We acknowledge that multiple people were held legally responsible. And we remember that the justice system, while imperfect, did reach conclusions based on evidence, not noise. That's the case. Not a spectacle. Not a reenactment. Just what happened, and why accuracy still matters. Yeah, this one stays with you. I know it does. Cases like this don't just end when the video ends. They follow you a little. Make the world feel different for a while. Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom were just 2 young people on an ordinary night. A drive for food. Cold January air. Music probably playing in the car. Think about it that way. Not as a headline, not as a case file. Just 2 lives moving forward like yours is right now. That's why this hurts. Because it reminds us how fast normal can disappear. Here's what I mean. When we talk about them, when we say their names, we're pushing back against them being reduced to that crime. They were loved, missed at dinner tables, and phone contacts that will never ring again. And I believe stories like this should be told, not for shock, but for memory, for respect, because forgetting would feel like another loss. I'm not neutral about that. We owe victims more than curiosity. We owe them care in how we speak about them. And if you're feeling heavy after this, that just means your heart's working the way it should. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, share, and comment.